Hi, it's Nami. Michael's off camera. Welcome to Mike and Nami Plus. Today I'm going to be talking about my experience breastfeeding. I breastfed all 3 children. The only baby who had formula was Ziek because I was actually pumping with Ziek. So I'll just start from the most recent baby because I remember the most. Mina is currently breastfeeding. She always breastfed well. I actually forgot about this because it was shortly after my surgery, my C-section, so I was kind of out of it. But Michael reminded me that Mina actually like latched, which is when they latch on to the breast, when they attach their mouths to the breast. She actually really latched on well. She was like just going like this, and then she found my breast and started nursing right away. So she was actually really good from the beginning of her birth, but I found that it was really painful for me. I was dying, right? And then I would scream, remember? It hurt in the beginning because her mouth was so small. Okay, her mouth isn't as small as Zeke's was when they were babies, but her mouth is still on the smaller side because her face is pretty small. And so when she would latch, she wouldn't really open her mouth all the way. This is the center of my breast, and then this is the area that's pigmented. You're supposed to latch like this, like their mouths, but she would just latch like this. So the only thing in her mouth is the center of my breast, not the whole pigmented area, which that's how you're supposed to nurse comfortably. Like all of the pressure would be like in the center, and so it would hurt every time she would latch and drink milk in the beginning. I would like scream. I think it lasted for like 3 weeks. Recently, I've also been using a silicone breast pump. There's no like devices on it. You just go like this, gently release it for when you're having letdown. This is good, I feel like, for when you are breastfeeding one side. Pump the other side, so when you're having letdown, which is when your milk comes through and your body tells you, okay, it's time to feed the baby, so your milk is coming through. It doesn't just come out one side, whatever side the baby's drinking from. It comes down from both sides. So I think there's something called lateral pumping, where you pump the other side that the baby's not drinking so that you can store milk for future use. This one comes with a lid. Everything's silicone. There's 2 sizes that I have, 150 ml and a 100 milliliter size. Recently, Mina's been sick, so I actually use this when she's not really nursing well. I would just pump my excess milk that she hadn't that she didn't drink, and then I put it in a bottle for her to drink. This pump is from a company called Haakaa, and this is the box that my pump came in. I found that this one was extremely convenient because there's literally no batteries and stuff. It's just all manual. It's very convenient to have a handheld one. These pumps are $20 to $30, and I don't actually do the dishes in the house. Michael does it because every time I try, he's like, no, let me do it because I'm faster. Is it easy to clean? It looks very easy to clean.
Yes, it is. Easy rinse, easy wash, easy dry.
So if you're exclusively nursing, I would highly suggest getting a silicone pump like this, or like a handheld pump, just so you have something extra in case your baby doesn't nurse well for that time. It's also effective for when... I think it's effective for if you need to be out for a few hours, and you can just pump some extra milk so that whoever's at home with the baby could feed your baby just a little bit while you're out. It's pretty discreet, so I even use it like under my breast cover, my breastfeeding cover. If you're interested in a pump like this, I'll have a link down below, and they've been generous to provide a coupon code as well, so you can have an additional discount off your order. Mostly for Mina, she likes to nurse lying down. So I usually lie down on my side and then nurse her on her side as well. She always nurses every time after she wakes up, and sometimes right before she's going to sleep. I think for me, my staples in breastfeeding are always my breast pads and also nursing shirts. I'm sorry, babe. Breast pads and nursing bras and nursing shirts. They make a world of a difference because it makes everything convenient. Somebody asked me about breastfeeding in public. In Canada, I feel like mostly people here, they use covers, like a thin sheet of fabric that's kind of air fluid, and you just wear it over your shoulders. We find that she doesn't really like the cover.
Come here.
For Zeke, I tried to nurse him. Oh, that was so sad.
It was an electronic.
Yeah, because he couldn't nurse. When he tried to latch, his mouth was so small and his tongue was so stuck to the bottom of his mouth that he would like try to drink, and then after 5 minutes there would be no more milk coming out, even though my breast is full of milk. He's only drinking from one point of my breast. If this whole area is my breast with milk, he would just be drinking with his small little mouth, smaller than Mina's, and it was so painful. It felt like needles like piercing my breast from all different sides. So he would only be pulling milk out from this section, when normally if their mouth is covering your whole pigmented area, it would be pulling all of the milk from all of the breast. When he was 2 months old, we decided to switch to pumping. It had 2 pump like devices. It had tubes that connected to the actual motor, and then the motor you would kind of adjust your speed and your pressure, and then I would do both sides at the same time, pump it, and then we would store it in the fridge and the freezer. And in the fridge, I think we had it for like a week or something, and then the freezer you can have it up to 6 months. For Mina, when we're out, I just nurse her in a different room or under the cover. But with Zeke, he would just drink from the bottle, and then I'd have to carry around like a lunch bag to put the milk inside, and then we would have to carry my pump in a different bag, and then I would pump too while we're out. So that was like quite a lot, but he did eat well. It would have definitely been easier to have a silicone pump like this, especially just when we're going out. I would pump in the car, and there was some times I would pump with my cover on, but I would have to plug it in. Remember how I would have to sit right next to a plug, and I would plug it in? It'd be so much easier if I was out and I just used this instead of bringing all the pump parts, and then I would have to rinse all the pump parts. Do you remember that when we were like over at other people's houses? I would have to use their kitchen sink to rinse my electronic pump parts. And then I think at 10 months we decided that pumping was just too hard to do exclusively for Zeke and with our work schedule and everything. So what we did was we switched to formula, and then we had the formula in the same bottles that we were feeding Zeke. He liked his little bottle, and he liked to lie down while drinking his bottle that he calls wati, which I don't know why, that's like his language. Wati means milk in a baby bottle. So he would always be like, wati, wati. Even when he's like 1. I think I would pump 4 times a day, and that means we'd have to wash the pump parts 4 times a day. And I remember having 2 different sets of pump parts, and then I would rotate them because it would just be so exhausting to pump, wash the pump parts, wait for them to dry before having to pump again. So I would rotate the 2 parts. Galahad was actually in the hospital for 6 days after he was born because he was in his incubator. He had some problems breathing when he was born. He had to stay in the hospital for almost a week. And I remember that while we were in the hospital, we would see all different kinds of nurses because they would have a different schedule. In the NICU, which is the neonatal intensive care unit for babies that are just born, they would actually help me and coach me on breastfeeding. They would tell me like, hold his neck like this, and like right when they open their mouth, you can like put your finger to like have them open their mouth, and then right when they open their mouth, you just shove your breast in. Once they latch, they're supposed to have a good latch where their mouth is open and their jaw is back, and their mouth is all over the pigmented area, not just the center of the breast. All of the nurses had different kind of advice to give in terms of breastfeeding, and we found that really helpful because you can kind of take different perspectives and use what applies to you and your baby, because everyone's breastfeeding experience will be different, everyone's baby will be different. And that's something that I learned too. Like after I had Galahad, I was like, oh my gosh, breastfeeding is so much easier than I thought it would be. But then with Zeke, it was like terribly difficult. With Mina, it was like really painful. I feel like because every child is different, every breastfeeding experience was different too. For Mina, when I used my finger, she didn't respond at all because she knew that was my finger. She knew that's not the breast, and so I would actually have to use my breast to help her latch. But that was really hard because my breast was super sensitive, especially in the beginning when it was really painful. And I found that it did take about a month, like 3 weeks to 4 weeks for the pain to go away. And now for the most part I just feel pressure. I don't really feel pain when I'm breastfeeding. Also, during the time that I was breastfeeding Galahad, I had a condition called hyperlactation, which is when you have an excess amount of milk while you're breastfeeding. And when he would drink and gulp my milk, I think he would also gulp air because he was also very, very gassy. He had issues burping because it was very hard for him to burp. We would have to like smack his back really hard, like this, for him to burp. But for Zeke, we would just sit him up and then he would just burp. So I think, yeah, every baby was different. And so because he was so gassy, we had to I had to nurse him every hour because a lot of his stomach would just be filled with air. And I think Galahad breastfed for about 18 months, about a year and a half. Luckily and thankfully, I didn't experience any bleeding with any 3 of the kids while I was breastfeeding them. It is saliva that is like, you know, when the baby's drinking, it's kind of like chapped lips. Like if you lick your lips, they get more dry because the saliva actually dries out your lips. The enzymes in the saliva on the breast would actually dry out your breast and dry out the center of your breast. My breast actually had some cracking in the center and it was very dry. For Mina, I'm planning to breastfeed for as long as I can because there's some research based on the correlation of breastfeeding and breast sagginess. They say that the longer you breastfeed for and the more gradual your weaning, like the detachment of breastfeeding is, then the less saggy your breast will become. Hopefully I can breastfeed her for like long and try to redeem my sad breasts because they're like basically, after I breastfed Galahad and Ziek, they became kind of like empty milk bags. It's just like excess skin hanging off my chest. If you have any questions, please let me know. I can try to answer them. And that is it for my breastfeeding experience. I will see you next time.